My name is Lee Morno. I am 32 years old and I work as a charge nurse in Columbus, Ohio. 3 weeks before my courthouse wedding, my mother walked into my hospital lobby, handed my fiancé a folder and said, "This is what Lee told her therapist about you." Daniel opened it in front of 2 security officers and my nurse manager. The first page said I was afraid he would hurt me if I canceled the wedding. I had never said that. Daniel did not raise his voice. He did not argue with my mother. He looked at the tiny audit code at the bottom of the page, took one picture, and said, "Please preserve this document exactly as it was delivered." That one sentence saved both of us. Because my parents thought they were exposing him as dangerous. What they actually handed over was the first receipt in a paper trail that led to a state licensing board hearing, a corrected medical record, and my mother saying the same sentence in front of 6 officials until one of them finally stopped her. We were only trying to protect her. If you have ever watched someone call control protection, tell me in the comments what you would have done in that lobby, because I still think about the fact that Daniel stayed calmer than I did. My parents had practiced being calm my entire life. My father, Raymond Morno, owned Morno Family Dental, a 3-office practice on the west side of Columbus. He was not a dentist. He was the business manager. He wore pressed shirts, drove a black Lincoln, and spoke in a low voice that made people lean closer. He liked that. He liked controlling the volume in every room. My mother, Gloria, was the public face. She ran the front office at the main clinic. She remembered birthdays, sent sympathy cards, arranged church meal trains, and made every person feel seen until they disagreed with her. Then she would go quiet. Her quiet was worse than shouting. Growing up, I heard one sentence more than any other. "We are only trying to protect you." When I wanted to study nursing instead of dental hygiene, they were only trying to protect me from night shifts. When I moved into an apartment with 2 other nurses at 24, they were only trying to protect me from unsafe neighborhoods. When I stopped giving them a copy of my work schedule at 27, they were only trying to protect me from burnout. And when I met Daniel Cho at a hospital legal clinic in April 2024, they decided he was the danger they had been waiting for. Daniel was 35. He worked for a nonprofit that helped tenants, domestic workers, and people with medical debt. He was not flashy. He owned 2 good suits, 1 old Toyota, and a bookshelf that looked like it had survived 3 moves and 1 flood. I met him because one of my patients was about to be discharged to an apartment with black mold. Daniel came to the hospital to explain her rights. He spoke to her like she was not a problem to solve. He asked permission before every question. He wrote down the name of her cat because she was worried the landlord would throw it out. After the meeting, I found him in the hallway looking for the cafeteria. "You saved her from going back into that apartment," I said. "She saved herself," he said. "I just knew where the forms were." That was Daniel. He never made himself the hero if a form could do the job. We had coffee 2 weeks later, then dinner, then Sunday morning grocery trips. By September, he knew I hated carnations, loved hospital ice, and needed 10 minutes of silence after a hard shift before anyone asked me questions. My parents met him that Thanksgiving. At first, they were polite. My father asked about his work. Daniel said he represented low-income clients. My father smiled. "So you help people who cannot pay you?" "Sometimes," Daniel said. "That is usually when people need help most." My mother laughed too loudly and changed the subject. After dinner, while Daniel helped my brother-in-law load leftovers into the car, my father stood beside me at the sink. "He seems gentle," he said. "He is. Gentle men can still be controlling." I put a plate into the dishwasher and closed it harder than I meant to. "Dad, you met him 4 hours ago." "I have met enough men," he said. "I know when one is performing." My mother came in behind him, wiping a counter that was already clean. "Your father is just being careful." There it was. Protection. Daniel proposed the next spring, April 18, 2025, in the parking lot outside Riverside Methodist after I finished a 12-hour shift. I was wearing compression socks and had pen ink on my scrub top. He had planned dinner, but my shift ran late and I was too tired to pretend. So he opened the ring box beside his old Toyota and said, "I want all the ordinary days with you, not the perfect version, this one." I said yes before he finished. I told my parents the next evening. My mother cried. My father hugged me. Then he asked the question that told me the next year would be hard. "Why so soon?" "We have been together a year." "A year is not long enough to know a man," he said. "It is long enough to know I want to marry him." My mother touched my hand. "No one is saying you cannot, we just want you to slow down." We planned a small courthouse ceremony for October 10, 2025. No big reception, no 5-tier cake, no ballroom. My parents hated that almost more than they hated Daniel. They wanted an audience. Not because they wanted to celebrate me, because private choices are harder to control. At first, they tried soft pressure. My mother sent me venues. My father offered to pay for a real wedding. My aunt called to ask why I was punishing the family by excluding them. A cousin I barely saw said my mother was heartbroken. I stayed calm. "We want simple," I said every time. By June, my father changed tactics. He invited Daniel to lunch at a steakhouse downtown. Daniel told me about it afterward, sitting at my kitchen table with his hands folded around a glass of water. "Your dad offered me $25,000 to postpone the wedding 1 year." I stared at him. He said it could be a loan for a better apartment. "What did you say?" I said no. "Did he get angry?" "No," Daniel said. "He got very reasonable, that was worse." My father's reasonableness was always the warning sign. The next week, my mother asked me if I had considered premarital counseling. "Daniel and I communicate well," I said. "Everyone thinks that before marriage." "Mom." "Lee, I am not attacking him. A few sessions could help you feel certain." Then she said the name. Dr. Celia Vance. Celia was not a doctor, but she called herself Dr. Vance because she had a PhD in counselor education. She was a licensed professional clinical counselor and ran Brookline Wellness, a small practice near Grandview. My mother had known her through church fundraisers for years. I did not want a therapist picked by my mother. But Celia's website looked legitimate. She specialized in adult family dynamics and relationship transitions. Daniel was open to it. He said, "If it gives us one more place to talk honestly, I am fine with it." That is how the door opened. Session 1 was normal. Celia had soft gray hair, square glasses, and a voice like warm tea. She asked about our families, our conflict style, our wedding plan. Daniel said he worried my parents would keep escalating. I said I worried I would freeze if they did. Celia nodded and wrote notes by hand. "Family systems get loud when a member changes position," she said. That sounded true. Session 2 was mostly about boundaries. Session 3, Celia asked to meet with me alone. "Just one individual session," she said. "It helps me understand your family role." Daniel offered to wait in the lobby. For 50 minutes, I told Celia things I had not said out loud to many people. How my mother could make me feel guilty with one sigh. How my father made concern sound like a court order. How I loved them and still felt smaller around them. Celia asked, "Has Daniel ever pressured you to cut them off?" "No." "Has he ever told you who you can see?" "No." "Has he ever made you feel physically afraid?" "Never." She underlined something on her pad. I noticed that. "What did you write?" "Just a clinical note," she said. I should have asked for my records right then. Instead, I thanked her for the session and went back to work. In July, things shifted. My mother stopped arguing about the courthouse. My father stopped calling Daniel by his last name like it was an insult. They seemed quiet, Too quiet. Then my hospital badge stopped working at the staff garage one morning. Security fixed it in 10 minutes, but the officer said, "There was a visitor alert attached to your profile. Might have crossed with the access system." Visitor alert for who? He looked uncomfortable. "I cannot discuss it here. Ask HR." At 2:15 that afternoon, my nurse manager, Marta Reyes, asked me to step into her office. Marta was 51, former ICU, calm in emergencies, allergic to nonsense. She closed the door and said, "This may be nothing, but I want you to see it before anyone decides what it means." She turned her monitor. There was an email from my mother. Subject line, concern for employee safety. My mother wrote that Daniel had become increasingly isolating, that I was not myself, and that she feared he might come to the hospital if I tried to leave him. Attached was a letter from Brookline Wellness. It was on Celia Vance's letterhead. It said that I had expressed fear about ending my engagement and had described Daniel as controlling, possessive, and retaliatory. I felt my face go cold. I never said any of that. Marta watched me carefully. "I believed you before you said it." That was the first time I breathed. "Why?" "Because the attachment has no release form, no recipient authorization, and no clinical purpose. It is not how legitimate providers communicate." Marta had already forwarded it to hospital legal and locked the visitor alert from being acted on. "I need you to send me one sentence by email," she said. "Say whether you authorize Brookline Wellness or your mother to send clinical information to your employer." "I do not." "Good, put that in writing." That was proof beat 1. The letter existed. It was unauthorized. It contained false words, and my mother had sent it to my employer. When I called Celia's office, the receptionist said she was with a client. I left a message. Celia called back at 7:40 that night. Her voice was not warm tea anymore. It was thin. "Lee, I understand you have concerns. Did you write a letter to my employer saying I am afraid of my fiancé?" Silence. "Celia, your mother was worried." That is not an answer. I sent a general safety concern. It was not meant to harm you. It was sent to my employer with statements I never made. Sometimes clients minimize risk when they are under pressure. I looked across the table at Daniel. He had not moved. "Are you saying I am lying now?" "I am saying I had to use my professional judgment." Daniel wrote on a notepad and turned it toward me. "Ask for records." "Send me my complete record," I said. "All notes, all amendments, all releases, all correspondence, and the audit log for that letter." Celia's tone changed. "That request needs to go through the portal." "Then send the portal link." She said she would. No link came. The next morning, Daniel filed a written records request for me. I signed it. He also sent a preservation letter to Brookline Wellness. He did not threaten. He used clean sentences. "Please preserve all clinical notes, drafts, metadata, audit history, access logs, communications, billing records, releases, and third-party correspondence related to Lee Morneau." My father called 20 minutes after the email went out. I let it go to voicemail. "Lee, this is getting out of hand. Your mother tried to help you. Do not let him turn you against people who love you. We are only trying to protect you." I saved it. Proof beat 2 came from the patient portal. Celia must have forgotten that Brookline Wellness automatically posted visit summaries after each session. The portal had my June summaries. Session 1. Couple reports stress related to family boundaries and ceremony expectations. Session 2. Client identifies parental pressure as primary stressor. Partner described as supportive. Session 3. Individual session. Client denies fear of partner. Client reports concern about parents' escalating control around wedding planning. I downloaded all 3 as PDFs. Then, 2 days later, Brookline uploaded a complete clinical record. The Session 3 note had changed. Now it said, client reports uncertainty about partner's temper. Client worries partner may retaliate if wedding is delayed. The portal's summary and complete record did not match. Daniel printed both versions and placed them side by side on our dining table. "This is not a misunderstanding," he said. "She altered the record. Or someone altered it under her account." I hated that his lawyer brain stayed precise, even when mine wanted to scream. I also loved him for it. We sent the mismatch to hospital legal and to an attorney Daniel trusted, Priya Shah. Priya handled health privacy and professional licensing cases. Her office was above a bakery in German Village, and the first thing she said after reading the documents was, "Do not talk to your parents alone." I was not planning to. Good, because this is not family drama anymore. This is clinical record manipulation. Priya filed a complaint with the Ohio Counselor, Social Worker, and Marriage and Family Therapist Board on August 4. She also sent Brookline a demand for the audit log. Brookline's office manager made the mistake that opened the next door. Instead of sending a clean PDF, she sent a full export package. It included a CSV file named Record History Limorno. Daniel opened it at 11:30 p.m. while I sat beside him in one of his old sweatshirts, too tired to pretend I was calm. There were timestamps. Original Session 3 note created June 24 at 3:06 p.m. Amended July 29 at 11:58 p.m. User, Fiancé admin. IP address, 6842.119.201. Daniel looked up the IP. It traced to a residential service area in Upper Arlington. My parents lived in Upper Arlington. That was proof beat 3. The false note had not been created during my session. It had been amended 5 weeks later, near midnight, from an area that matched my parents' home. I still tried to give the smallest benefit of the doubt. Maybe Celia worked from home near them. Daniel did not argue. He just said, "Then the rest of the logs will show that." They did not. Over the next week, the licensing board investigator, Elaine Porter, contacted Priya. She was not dramatic. She asked for the portal summaries, the altered notes, the employer letter, and my written denial of authorization. She also subpoenaed Brookline's access logs. That is when the story stopped being about one false letter. Mid-August, Priya called me during lunch. "Are you sitting down?" "I am in the break room." "Celia Vance's practice received payments from your parents." I closed my eyes. "How much?" $64,800 over 9 months. For a moment, all I could hear was the soda machine humming. The payments were made through my father's dental management company to a consulting LLC Celia owned called Vance Family Strategies. Invoice 1, December 12, 2024, Family Transition Consultation, $12,500. That was 2 weeks after my parents met Daniel. Invoice 2, April 22, 2025, Protective Planning Retainer, $18,300. That was 4 days after Daniel proposed. Invoice 3, July 28, 2025, Crisis Documentation Package, $34,000. That was 1 day before the clinical note was changed. Proof beat 4 was money. Not concern, not instinct, not motherly fear. Money. My father had paid a licensed counselor's side company to build a professional-looking record against my fiancé. When I told Daniel, he sat down slowly. "They tried to make me look dangerous." "Yes." "To your employer." "Yes." "What else did they send?" That question became the midpoint. Because the answer was not just the hospital. On August 19, Priya received a copy of a grievance filed against Daniel with the Ohio Bar's Disciplinary Council. The complainant was my father. He claimed Daniel used his position as a legal aid attorney to isolate me from family, pressure me into marriage, and gain access to my savings. Attached to the complaint was Celia's altered letter. Also attached was a spreadsheet of my bank transfers to Daniel. There were 3 transfers: $620 for half a couch, $1,100 for my share of a security deposit, $89 for concert tickets. My father labeled them financial control indicators. I laughed when I saw that, not because it was funny, because if I did not laugh, something in me was going to break. They were not only trying to stop the wedding. They were trying to damage Daniel's job, my reputation at the hospital, and our legal ability to build a life without them. Priya said it plainly. This is a coordinated record-building campaign. That phrase stayed in my head. Coordinated record-building campaign. My parents were not losing control in a messy way. They were documenting their lie so other people would enforce it for them. That night, Daniel and I sat on the kitchen floor because the table had too many papers on it. He said, "We can postpone." No. Lee, I do not care about the date. I care about you. So do I, and I care about not letting them train me to run every time they create a crisis. He nodded, but his face looked tired. Then we keep the date. We keep the date. I slept 3 hours. At 5:40 a.m., my mother texted, "Please come over alone. Your father and I are scared. We love you. We are only trying to protect you." I screenshotted it and blocked her number for the day. That was the part where I realized paper can either trap you or free you. If you want to see how records can outtalk the loudest people in the room, share this story and subscribe for the next reveal. The licensing board hearing was scheduled for September 18, 2025. Our courthouse wedding was scheduled for October 10. That gave my parents 3 weeks to panic. They used every hour. My Aunt Denise called first. "Your mother is not eating. That is between her and her doctor. Lee, she is devastated. She sent false clinical information to my employer. She was scared. So was I." Denise went quiet. Then she said, "You sound cold." "No," I said, "I sound documented." My father showed up at the hospital on September 2. Marta called security before she called me. I watched from the second-floor window as 2 officers escorted him away from the entrance. He was wearing his clinic suit, the one he wore when he wanted people to think he belonged in charge. He looked up and saw me. For once, he had no room to lower his voice and make me lean closer. The next day, he sent Priya a letter through his attorney. It said the board complaint was a misunderstanding caused by parental concern. It requested that I withdraw the complaint and agree to family mediation. Priya's reply was 3 sentences. Ms. Morneau did not file a misunderstanding. She reported unauthorized disclosure and suspected alteration of clinical records. Direct all future communication to this office. Do not contact my client. I printed that email and put it in a folder. I started carrying the folder in my work bag. That might sound dramatic. It was not. It made me feel like I had a handle on the truth. The 5th proof beat came from a woman named Tasha Bell. Tasha worked the front desk at Brookline Wellness until August. She contacted the licensing board investigator after she heard there was a complaint. Elaine Porter asked if Tasha could speak with my attorney. On September 9, we met in Priya's office. Tasha was 26, nervous, and angry in the way people get when they realize they were used. "I knew something was wrong with your file," she said. "I did not know what." She brought copies of her resignation email and screenshots from the office calendar. There were after-hours meetings, labeled GM and RM. Gloria Morneau, Raymond Morneau. June 18, 7:00 p.m. July 3, 6:30 p.m. July 28, 8:15 p.m. The July 28 meeting was the night before the altered note. Tasha said, Celia told me not to enter them as clients. She said they were consulting contacts, but they talked about you. I heard your name through the wall. What did they say? Tasha swallowed. Your father said, if the record says she is afraid, Daniel is finished. I looked down at my hands. They were steady. I remember that because I expected them to shake. Tasha also had one voicemail from Celia. It was left after Tasha questioned why a letter was being sent to my employer without a release. Celia's voice said, Gloria and Raymond are paying for a safety intervention. You do not need to understand the whole family system. Please send the document as instructed. Priya played it twice. No one spoke for a few seconds. That was proof beat 5. A witness, a calendar, a voicemail, a sentence that took the whole lie apart. By then, the bar complaint against Daniel had already been paused pending the licensing board review. His director at work knew. His coworkers knew. He walked into the office every morning with a false complaint hanging over him because my parents wanted me scared enough to come home. One evening, I found him standing in our bathroom, gripping the sink. I hate that they made me defend myself against something I would never do, he said. He looked ashamed for being affected. That made me angrier than anything my parents had done to me. I went at him and said, You do not have to be calm for me every second. He laughed once, tired and sharp. I thought that was my job. No, your job is to be honest. Then honestly, I am furious. Good. He looked at me in the mirror. Are you? Yes. You do not sound like it. Because if I start yelling, I might not stop. That was the first night we talked about what the wedding would mean after all this. Not flowers, not paperwork, not witnesses. Choice. My parents had made my life feel like a hallway where every exit belonged to them. Daniel was not rescuing me from that hallway. He was standing beside me while I opened the door myself. On September 17, the night before the hearing, my mother emailed me from a new account. Subject, please read before tomorrow. I almost deleted it. Priya told me to forward it without responding. I did. Then I read it once. Lay. I know you think we betrayed you. Someday you will understand fear makes parents do things they never imagined. Daniel has changed you. You used to trust us. You used to come home. You used to listen. We wanted documentation because no one believes parents when adult children are manipulated. Celia understood that. She understood what we were losing. We were only trying to protect you. Mom. What we were losing. Not what I was losing. What they were losing. That was the center of it. They were not afraid Daniel would take me away. They were afraid I had already left. The hearing was held in a state office building downtown. 4th floor. Conference room B, beige walls, long table, state seal on one wall, digital recorder in the center. Not dramatic. No marble courtroom. No packed church. Just fluorescent lights and chairs that squeaked when people shifted. But that room mattered because everyone there had a role. Elaine Porter, the investigator. 2 board members. An assistant attorney general. My attorney, Priya. Celia and her attorney. My parents and their attorney. Daniel sat beside me, not as a defendant, not as a problem, but as the person harmed by the false record. Marta was there under subpoena for the hospital letter. Tasha was there for the office calendar and voicemail. There were more than 3 witnesses. There were officials. There were records. There was no family couch where my father could lean back and make the truth sound rude. The assistant attorney general started with the basic issue. This hearing concerns alleged unauthorized disclosure, record alteration, and deceptive conduct by licensee Celia Vance. Celia stared at the table. My mother stared at me. My father stared at Daniel. Elaine gave a timeline. She did not add emotion. She did not need to. June 24, individual session. July 28, after-hours meeting with Gloria and Raymond Morno. July 29, clinical note amended at 11:58 p.m. July 30, safety letter generated. July 31, letter sent to Riverside Methodist Hospital by Gloria Morno. August 6, letter attached to bar grievance filed by Raymond Morno. September 9, former employee provides voicemail regarding safety intervention. Each date landed like a weight. Celia's attorney argued that therapists have a duty to prevent harm. Priya said there was no identified threat. The assistant attorney general asked Celia directly, "Did Ms. Morno sign a release authorizing disclosure to her employer?" Celia's mouth opened, then closed. "No." "Did Ms. Morno tell you Daniel Cho threatened to hurt her?" Celia looked at my parents. The board chair said, "Please answer the question." "Not in those words." Priya's pen stopped moving. "Not in those words," the chair repeated. "What words did she use?" Celia swallowed. "She said her parents were escalating." "Her parents," the chair said. "Yes." The assistant attorney general displayed the portal summary on the screen. Client denies fear of partner. Client reports concern about parents escalating control around wedding planning. Then he displayed the amended note. Client worries partner may retaliate if wedding is delayed. The room was silent, except for the recorder. "Dr. Vance," the board member said, "who changed that sentence?" Celia whispered, "I did." My mother closed her eyes. My father leaned toward his attorney. The board member continued. "Why?" Celia said, "I believe the family context suggested risk." Priya said, "The family context was paying your consulting company." Celia's attorney objected. The chair allowed the invoice exhibits. One by one, they went onto the screen. Family transition consultation, $12,500. Protective planning retainer, $18,300. Crisis documentation package, $34,000. The assistant attorney general asked, "Were these payments disclosed to Ms. Morno?" "No." "Were they disclosed to Daniel Cho?" "No." "Were Gloria and Raymond Morno clients of Brookline Wellness?" "No." "So why did their payments correspond to changes in Ms. Morno's clinical file?" Celia did not answer. That silence did more than a confession. My father tried to stand. "This is being twisted." His attorney touched his arm. "Mr. Morno," the chair said, "you will have a chance to speak if asked." My father sat down, but he could not stop himself. We were only trying to protect her. The chair looked at him for 2 full seconds. Protection does not require forged clinical records. I will remember that sentence for the rest of my life. Not because it was beautiful, because it was useful. Tasha testified next. Her voice shook at first, then it steadied. She explained the after-hours meetings, the instruction not to enter my parents as clients, the missing release, the voicemail. The voicemail was played in the room. Celia's recorded voice filled the speaker. "Gloria and Raymond are paying for a safety intervention. You do not need to understand the whole family system. Please send the document as instructed." Marta testified after that. She explained hospital policy. She said the letter was not acted on because it lacked authorization and contained no verifiable threat. "What would have happened if your department accepted the letter?" the assistant attorney general asked. Marta looked at me, then back at him. "It could have affected Ms. Morno's work profile, visitor access, and internal safety notes. It could have created a false workplace record." Against Daniel Cho. Against Daniel Cho and Ms. Morno's judgment. My father rubbed his forehead. My mother cried quietly. I did not comfort her. That was new. For 32 years, her tears had been an assignment. In that room, they were just tears. The bar grievance came last. The Assistant Attorney General was careful because that was a separate process, but the board had the attachment. Celia's false letter had been used outside treatment to support a complaint against Daniel. Daniel was asked one question. Mr. Cho, did you ever threaten Ms. Morneau, restrict her contact with family, or seek access to her finances? No. Did you receive any payments or financial benefit from Ms. Morneau, outside ordinary shared expenses? No. Did you respond to Raymond Morneau's offer to pay you to postpone the wedding? Daniel glanced at me. No, I declined it. My father looked up fast. He had not known Daniel saved that too. Priya had the email Daniel sent himself after the steakhouse lunch, time-stamped June 11, 2025, 1:44 p.m. Memo to file. Raymond Morneau offered $25,000 framed as apartment help if I agree to delay wedding by 1 year. I declined. He said Lee is too attached to bad choices. Preserve for future boundary issues. The board chair read it. Mr. Morneau, did you offer Daniel Cho money to postpone the wedding? My father's attorney whispered to him. My father said, I offered help. Did the help require postponement? I suggested it. With $25,000 attached. He said nothing. It was the first time I ever saw my father lose control of a room without anyone raising their voice. The board went into closed session for 42 minutes. We waited in the hallway. My mother walked toward me once. Priya stepped between us. Do not, she said. My mother stopped. Lee, please. I looked at her. You sent a fake therapy letter to my boss. Her face folded. I thought if they saw it officially, someone would slow you down. That was the point. I was scared. So you made everyone else scared of Daniel. She had no answer. My father said from behind her, he has you talking like a lawyer. Daniel started to stand. I put my hand on his arm. No, I said. I have me talking like a person with records. The door opened. We went back in. The board issued an emergency suspension of Celia's license, pending final discipline. Brookline Wellness was ordered to notify affected clients of possible record integrity concerns. Celia was ordered to produce corrected records and a sworn explanation of all third-party communications. The board referred the consulting payments and altered documentation to the Attorney General's office for further review. The chair also said the line I needed most. The record before this board does not support any finding that Daniel Cho posed a threat to Lee Morneau. It was not romantic. It was better than romantic. It was official. My father walked out first. My mother followed him. Celia stayed seated, crying into a tissue. Tasha walked over to me in the hallway. I am sorry I did not say something sooner. You said it when it mattered. Marta hugged me once, quick and firm. Take tomorrow off, she said. I have PTO. You have a manager who can read a room. Daniel and I walked outside into a gray September afternoon. No music, no applause, just traffic and exhaust and a food truck on the corner selling tacos. He said, Are you okay? No. Do you still want October 10? I looked at him. More than I did yesterday. The practical receipts arrived over the next 2 weeks. First, Brookline sent my corrected clinical record. The false sentence was removed. An addendum stated that no client statement supported the safety letter and that the disclosure to my employer had been unauthorized. Second, Riverside Methodist closed the visitor alert request with a written finding. No substantiated safety concern involving Daniel Cho. Third, the bar grievance against Daniel was dismissed as unsupported. The dismissal letter said the complainant relied on a clinical document later, identified as altered and unauthorized. Fourth, Celia signed an interim consent order agreeing not to practice during the investigation. There was one smaller receipt that mattered more than I expected. Marta asked me to come to her office on September 30. She had a single-page memo from hospital legal. It said my personnel file would not contain my mother's email, Celia's letter, or any related visitor alert request because the material had been submitted without authorization and had been rejected before action. "I wanted you to see it," Marta said, "not just hear me say it." I read the memo twice. My parents had tried to plant doubt where I earned my living. The hospital did not just ignore it. The hospital documented that it did not belong there. That difference mattered. Daniel got a similar call from his director. The nonprofit board had reviewed the bar dismissal and put a note in his personnel file saying the grievance was externally motivated and unsupported. His director told him, "We are not letting someone else's family campaign become your professional shadow." He cried after that call. Quietly, for about 30 seconds. Then he wiped his face and said, "I did not realize how much I needed someone official to say that." I knew exactly what he meant. I put all 4 papers in one folder. Not because I wanted to live in the past. Because for the first time, the past had page numbers. My parents tried to contact me through relatives. My Aunt Denise sent, "Your father is having chest pains." I replied, "Call 911. My cousin Mateo sent, "Your mom says she cannot sleep." I replied, "She should call her therapist, not mine." My older sister, Carmen, was the only one who did not pressure me. She had left Ohio years earlier and moved to Arizona after a fight with my father over her divorce. She called the night after the hearing. "I believe you," she said before hello. I sat on the bedroom floor and cried for the first time in weeks. "Did he do this to you too?" "Not with a therapist," she said. "With money, with custody threats, with church people. Same engine, different parts." Same engine, different parts. That became how I understood my family. The details changed. The control did not. Carmen flew in for the wedding. On October 10, Daniel and I got married at the Franklin County Courthouse with 9 people present. Carmen, Daniel's parents, his sister, Marta, Priya, 2 friends from work, and Tasha, because I asked her. She said, "Are you sure I was part of the mess? You were part of the truth." My parents were not invited. The ceremony lasted 11 minutes. The judge asked if I took Daniel to be my husband. I said yes clearly. Not loudly. Clearly. Daniel said yes the same way. Afterward, we ate lunch at a small Korean restaurant his parents loved. There were no speeches, no bouquet, no choreographed entrance. Daniel's mother ordered too much food. Carmen laughed so hard she snorted tea. Marta took one picture where I looked tired and happy and completely myself. That picture is still on our refrigerator. My mother sent one letter in November. It came through Priya, because that was the only allowed channel. She wrote that she had started counseling with someone outside her church circle. She wrote that she had moved into the guest room because my father still believed he had done nothing wrong. She wrote that she understood if I never answered. I did not answer. Not because I hated her. Because the first boundary has to survive the first apology. My father sent nothing. Then, in December, Morneau Family Dental removed his name from the website leadership page. My sister sent me a screenshot. I called Carmen. "What happened?" "Insurance review," she said. "The Attorney General referral spooked the partners. They are buying him out." My father had spent his whole life making himself the man behind every desk. Now the desks were learning his name was a risk. I felt a small, clean satisfaction. Then I went back to folding laundry. That is the thing people do not tell you about public justice. It does not turn your life into a movie. It gives you enough quiet to do ordinary things without someone else's lie breathing down your neck. January 2026 came cold and bright. Daniel and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment closer to my hospital. We bought the couch that had become a financial control indicator in my father's complaint. Every time I sat on it, I wanted to laugh. In February, the final board order came out. Celia Vance's license was suspended for 3 years, with conditions before reinstatement. Brookline Wellness had to undergo an outside records audit. Vance Family Strategies was named in the findings as an undisclosed conflict. The order did not mention my parents by name, but it described third-party family members who funded documentation efforts. That phrase was ugly and accurate. Daniel's dismissal letter and my corrected record were enough for us to update everything. Emergency contact. Healthcare proxy. Workplace visitor list. Beneficiary forms. Apartment lease. Every place my parents used to sit by default, I made a choice. Some choices looked small. A checkbox. A signature. A name typed into a portal. But each one moved my life back into my own hands. The last time I saw my parents was not dramatic. It was March 3, 2026, at a grocery store in Grandview. I was buying apples and Greek yogurt after work. My hair was still in a flattened bun from my scrub cap. I turned into the cereal aisle and saw them. My mother looked thinner. My father looked older but not softer. For 2 seconds, none of us moved. Then my father said, "Lee." Not honey. Not sweetheart. My name. It sounded strange from him. My mother started crying immediately. He said, "We need to talk." I looked at the cereal shelf, then back at him. "No, we do not. You cannot avoid us forever." "I am not avoiding you. I am choosing not to have contact." His mouth tightened. Still using therapy words. "No," I said, using accurate ones. My mother whispered, "We miss you." That one hurt. I will not pretend it did not. I missed something too, not the parents standing in front of me exactly. I missed the version of them I kept trying to earn, the mother who could have been proud without owning me, the father who could have protected me without controlling the evidence. But missing a thing does not make it real. I put the yogurt in my cart. "Take care of yourselves," I said. Then I walked to check out. My legs shook in the parking lot. I sat in my car for 8 minutes before driving home. Daniel was making rice when I came in. He turned off the burner and said, "What happened?" I told him. He asked, "Do you want me to be angry or quiet?" That is love, by the way. Not guessing what I need and calling it protection. Asking. "Quiet," I said. So he sat beside me on the kitchen floor and said nothing until my breathing slowed down. By April, my life had become boring in the best way. Work, home, dinner, bills, laundry, Saturday walks by the river, Sunday calls with Carmen, therapy every other Thursday with a provider I found myself, paid myself, and could leave anytime I wanted. In one session, my therapist asked, "What do you think justice means now?" I thought about the hearing room, the invoices, Tasha's voicemail, the corrected record, Daniel sitting beside me while strangers confirmed he had not done the thing my parents accused him of doing. "It means the facts do not have to be loud to be final," I said. She wrote that down. I almost laughed. This time I asked, "What did you write?" She turned the notebook so I could see. Client defines justice as facts becoming final. No hidden sentence. No secret amendment. Just my words, where I could see them. The emotional receipt came on May 12, 2026. It was a Tuesday, nothing special. I was at Riverside Methodist, finishing a discharge checklist, when registration called upstairs. "We need your updated emergency contact form. The old one has your mother listed as primary." I went down after shift. Same lobby, where my mother had handed Daniel the folder. Same security desk. Same polished floor. The officer on duty was not one of the two from that day, but I still remembered exactly where Daniel had stood. The registrar slid the form across the counter. Primary emergency contact. I wrote Daniel Cho. Relationship. Husband. Secondary contact. Carmen Morno. Relationship. Sister. No Raymond. No Gloria. The registrar stamped the page and said, "You are all set." That was the practical receipt. One stamped hospital form. But Daniel was waiting outside because he had picked me up for dinner. I walked through the automatic doors and handed him the yellow copy. He read it. His face changed at the word husband. "This is official," he said. "Very official. Stamped and everything. The stamp is important." He smiled, but his eyes were wet. Then he folded the copy carefully and put it in the glove box of his old Toyota like it was worth more than the car. That was the emotional receipt. Not a speech, not an apology, not my parents finally understanding. Just the person they tried to turn into a threat, being the name I chose in an emergency. We drove to a diner near the river. I ordered pancakes for dinner because I could. Daniel ordered eggs and stole one pancake anyway. We talked about his work, my new nurse hire, Carmen's terrible dating stories, and whether we should adopt a dog once our lease allowed it. Normal things. Quiet things. Mine. Sometimes people ask if I forgive my parents. I tell them forgiveness is not the headline. The headline is that they built a false record, and the real record outlived it. They paid for a professional letter. The portal kept the original note. They filed a complaint. The audit log kept the timestamp. They called it protection. The board called it unauthorized disclosure and altered documentation. They tried to make Daniel look dangerous. The final record says he was not. And when the hospital asked who to call if something happens to me, I wrote his name without fear. That is where the story lands for me. Not in revenge. In replacement. Their story about my life was replaced by my own handwriting. Their emergency was replaced by my emergency contact. Their protection was replaced by my choice. And choice, after years of being managed, feels like peace.